you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Buenas noches, mis amigos. I'm delighted to be here with you this evening because after listening to George Bush all these years, I figured you needed to know what a real Texas accent sounds like. 12 years ago, Barbara Jordan, another Texas woman, Barbara made the keynote address to this convention, and 2 women in 160 years is about par for the course. But if you give us a chance, we can perform. After all, Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did. She just did it backwards and in high heels. I want to announce to this nation that in a little more than 100 days, the Reagan, Mies, Deaver, Knopfziger, Poindexter, North, Weinberger, Watt, Gorsuch, Lavelle, Stockman, Haig, Bork, Noriega, George Bush will be over. You know, tonight I feel a little like I did when I played basketball in the 8th grade. I thought I looked real cute in my uniform. And then I heard a boy yell from the bleachers, "Make that basket bird legs." And my greatest fear is that same guy is somewhere out there in the audience tonight. And he's gonna cut me down to size. Because where I grew up, there really wasn't much tolerance for self-importance, people who put on airs. I was born during the Depression in a little community just outside Waco, and I grew up listening to Franklin Roosevelt on the radio. Well, it was back then that I came to understand the small truths and the hardships that bind neighbors together. Those were real people with real problems, and they had real dreams about getting out of the Depression. I can remember summer nights when we'd put down what we called a Baptist pallet, and we listened to the grown-ups talk. I can still hear the sound of the dominoes clicking on the marble slab my daddy had found for a tabletop. I can still hear the laughter of the men telling jokes you weren't supposed to hear, talking about how big that old buck deer was, laughing about Mama putting Clorox in the well when the frog fell in. They talked about war and Washington and what this country needed. They talked straight talk. And it came from people who were living their lives as best they could. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to tell how the cow ate the cabbage. I got a letter last week from a young mother in Lorena, Texas, and I want to read part of it to you. She writes, "Our worries go from payday to payday, just like millions of others. And we have two fairly decent incomes, but I worry how I'm going to pay the rising car insurance and food. I pray my kids don't have a growth spurt from August to December so I don't have to buy new jeans. We buy clothes at the budget stores and we have them fray and fade and stretch in the first wash. We ponder and try to figure out how we're going to pay for college and braces and tennis shoes. We don't take vacations and we don't go out to eat. Please don't think me ungrateful. We have jobs and a nice place to live, and we're healthy. We're the people you see every day in the grocery stores. We obey the laws, we pay our taxes, we fly our flags on holidays, and we plod along trying to make it better for ourselves and our children and our parents. We aren't vocal anymore. I think maybe we're too tired. I believe that people like us are forgotten in America." Well, of course you believe you're forgotten, because you have been. This Republican administration treats us as if we were pieces of a puzzle that can't fit together. They've tried to put us into compartments and separate us from each other. Their political theory is divide and conquer. They've suggested time and time again that what is of interest to one group of Americans is not of interest to anyone else. We've been isolated. We've been lumped into that sad phraseology called special interests. They've told farmers that they were selfish, that they would drive up food prices if they asked the government to intervene on behalf of the family farm. And we watched farms go on the auction block while we bought food from foreign countries. Well, that's wrong. They told working mothers it's all their fault that families are falling apart because they had to go to work to keep their kids in jeans and tennis shoes and college, and they're wrong. They told American labor they were trying to ruin free enterprise by asking for 60 days notice of plant closings, and that's wrong. And they told the auto industry and the steel industry and the timber industry and the oil industry, companies being threatened by foreign products flooding this country, that you're protectionist if you think the government should enforce our trade laws, and that is wrong. When they belittle us for demanding clean air and clean water, for trying to save the oceans and the ozone layer, that's wrong. No wonder we feel isolated and confused. We want answers, and their answer is that something is wrong with you. Well, nothing's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you that you can't fix in November. We've been told that the interests of the South and the Southwest are not the same interests as the North and the Northeast. They pit one group against the other. They've divided this country. And in our isolation, we think government isn't going to help us. And we're alone in our feelings. We feel forgotten. Well, the fact is that we are not an isolated piece of their puzzle. We are one nation. We are the United States of America. Now, we Democrats believe that America is still the country of fair play, that we can come out of a small town or a poor neighborhood and have the same chance as anyone else, and it doesn't matter whether we are black or Hispanic or disabled or women. We believe that America is a country where small business owners must succeed because they are the bedrock, backbone of our economy. We believe that our kids deserve good daycare and public schools. We believe our kids deserve public schools where students can learn and teachers can teach. And we want to believe that our parents will have a good retirement, and that we will too. We Democrats believe that Social Security is a pact that cannot be broken. We want to believe that we can live out our lives without the terrible fear that an illness is going to bankrupt us and our children. We Democrats believe that America can overcome any problem, including the dreaded disease called AIDS. We believe that America is still a country where there is more to life than just a constant struggle for money. And we believe that America must have leaders who show us that our struggles amount to something and contribute to something larger, leaders who want us to be all that we can be. We want leaders like Jesse Jackson. Jackson is a leader and a teacher who can open our hearts and open our minds and stir our very souls. And he has taught us that we are as good as our capacity for caring. Caring about the drug problem, caring about crime, caring about education, and caring about each other. Now, in contrast, the greatest nation of the free world has had a leader for 8 straight years that has pretended that he cannot hear our questions over the noise of the helicopter. And we know he doesn't want to answer, but we have a lot of questions. And when we get our questions asked, or there is a leak, or an investigation, the only answer we get is, I don't know, or I forgot. But you wouldn't accept that answer from your children. I wouldn't. Don't tell me you don't know or you forgot. We're not going to have the America that we want until we elect leaders who are going to tell the truth. Not most days, but every day. Leaders who don't forget what they don't want to remember. And for 8 straight years, George Bush hasn't displayed the slightest interest in anything we care about. And now that he's after a job that he can't get appointed to, he's like Columbus discovering America. He's found childcare. He's found education. Poor George. He can't help it. He was born with a silver foot in his mouth. Well, no wonder. No wonder we can't figure it out. Because the leadership of this nation is telling us one thing on TV and doing something entirely different. They tell us that they're fighting a war against terrorists. And then we find out that the White House is selling arms to the Ayatollah. They tell us that they're fighting a war on drugs. And then people come on TV and testify that the CIA and the DEA and the FBI knew they were flying drugs into America all along. And they're negotiating with a dictator who is shoveling cocaine into this country like crazy. I guess that's their Central American strategy. Now, they tell us that employment rates are great and that they're for equal opportunity. But we know it takes 2 paychecks to make ends meet today when it used to take 1. And the opportunity they're so proud of is low-wage, dead-end jobs. And there is no major city in America where you cannot see homeless men sitting in parking lots holding signs that say, "I will work for food." Now, my friends, we really are at a crucial point in American history. Under this administration, we have devoted our resources into making this country a military colossus. But we've let our economic lines of defense fall into disrepair. The debt of this nation is greater than it has ever been in our history. We fought a world war on less debt than the Republicans have built up in the last 8 years. You know, it's kind of like that brother-in-law who drives a flashy new car, but he's always borrowing money from you to make the payments. Well, but let's take what they're proudest of. That is their stand on defense. We Democrats are committed to a strong America, and quite frankly, when our leaders say to us, we need a new weapons system, our inclination is to say, well, they must be right. But when we pay billions for planes that won't fly, billions for tanks that won't fire, and billions for systems that won't work, that old dog won't hunt. And you don't have to be from Waco to know that when the Pentagon makes crooks rich and doesn't make America strong, that it's a bum deal. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm really glad that our young people missed the Depression and missed the Great Big War. But I do regret that they missed the leaders that I knew. Leaders who told us when things were tough and that we'd have to sacrifice, and that these difficulties might last for a while. They didn't tell us things were hard for us because we were different or isolated or special interests. They brought us together, and they gave us a sense of national purpose. They gave us Social Security, and they told us they were setting up a system where we could pay our own money in, and when the time came for our retirement, we could take the money out. People in the rural areas were told that we deserved to have electric lights, and they were going to harness the energy that was necessary to give us electricity so my grandmama didn't have to carry that old coal oil lamp around. And they told us that they were going to guarantee when we put our money in the bank that the money was going to be there and it was going to be insured. They did not lie to us. And I think one of the saving graces of Democrats is that we are candid. We talk straight talk. We tell people what we think. And that tradition and those values live today in Michael Dukakis from Massachusetts. Michael Dukakis knows that this country is on the edge of a great new era, that we're not afraid of change, that we're for thoughtful, truthful, strong leadership. Behind his calm, there's an impatience to unify this country and to get on with the future. His instincts are deeply American. They're tough, and they're generous. And personally, I have to tell you that I have never met a man who had a more remarkable sense about what is really important in life. And then there's my friend and my teacher for many years, Senator Lloyd Bentsen. And I couldn't be prouder, both as a Texan and as a Democrat, because Lloyd Bentsen understands America. From the barrio to the boardroom, he knows how to bring us together by regions, by economics, and by example. And he's already beaten George Bush once. So when it comes right down to it, this election is a contest between those who are satisfied with what they have and those who know we can do better. That's what this election is really all about. It's about the American dream, those who want to keep it for the few, and those who know it must be nurtured and passed along. I'm a grandmother now, and I have one nearly perfect granddaughter named Lily. And when I hold that grandbaby, I feel the continuity of life that unites us, that binds generation to generation. that ties us with each other. And sometimes I spread that Baptist pallet out on the floor, and Lily and I roll a ball back and forth. And I think of all the families like mine, like the one in Lorena, Texas, like the ones that nurture children all across America. And as I look at Lily, I know that it is within families that we learn both the need to respect individual human dignity and to work together for our common good. Within our families, within our nation, it is the same. And as I sit there, I wonder if she'll ever grasp the changes I've seen in my life, if she'll ever believe that there was a time when blacks could not drink from public water fountains, when Hispanic children were punished for speaking Spanish in the public schools, and women couldn't vote. I think of all the political fights I've fought and all the compromises I've had to accept as part payment, and I think of all the small victories that have added up to national triumphs, and all the things that would never have happened, and all the people who would have been left behind if we had not reasoned and fought and won those battles together. And I will tell Lily that those triumphs were Democratic Party triumphs. I want so much to tell Lily how far we've come, you and I. And as the ball rolls back and forth, I want to tell her how very lucky she is. That for all of our difference, we are still the greatest nation on this good earth. And our strength lies in the men and women who go to work every day, who struggle to balance their family and their jobs, and who should never, ever be forgotten. I just hope that, like her grandparents and her great-grandparents before, that Lily goes on to raise her kids with the promise that echoes in homes all across America, that we can do better, and that's what this election is all about. Thank you very much.
Tonight, we pause and give praise and honor to God for being good enough to allow us to be at this place at this time. When I look out at this convention, I see the face of America, red, yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight, the real Rainbow Coalition. All of us who are here think that we are seated, but we're really standing on someone's shoulders. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Rosa Parks. The mother of the Civil Rights Movement. I want to express my deep love and appreciation for the support my family has given me over these past months. They have endured pain, anxiety, threat, and fear, but they have been strengthened and made secure by our faith in God, in America, and in you. Your love has protected us and made us strong. To my wife, Jackie, the foundation of our family, to our 5 children whom you met tonight, to my mother, Mrs. Helen Jackson, who is present tonight, and to our grandmother, Mrs. Matilda Burns, to my brother Chuck and his family, to my mother-in-law, Mrs. Gertrude Brown, who just last month at age 61 graduated from Hampton Institute, a marvelous achievement. I offer my appreciation to Mayor Andrew Young, who has provided such gracious hospitality to all of us this week, and a special salute to President Jimmy Carter. President Carter, President Carter restored honor to the White House after Watergate. He gave many of us a special opportunity to grow. For his kind words, for his unwavering commitment to peace in the world, and for the voters that came from his family, every member of his family, led by Billy and Amy, I offer my special thanks to the Carter family. My right and my privilege to stand here before you has been won in my lifetime by the blood and the sweat of the innocent. 24 years ago, the late Fannie Lou Hamer and Aaron Henry, who sits here tonight from Mississippi, were locked out onto the streets in Atlantic City, the head of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. But tonight, a black and white delegation from Mississippi is headed by Ed Cole, a black man from Mississippi, 24 years later. Many were lost in the struggle for the right to vote. Jimmy Lee Jackson, a young student, gave his life. Vala Luizzo, a white mother from Detroit, called nigger lover and brains blown out at point blank range. Surrounded Goodman and Cheney, 2 Jews and a black, found in a common grave, bodies riddled with bullets in Mississippi. The 4 darling little girls in a church in Birmingham, Alabama, they died that we might have a right to live. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. lies only a few miles from us tonight. Tonight he must feel good as he looks down upon us. We sit here together, a rainbow coalition, the sons and daughters of slave masters and the sons and daughters of slaves sitting together around the common table to decide the direction of our party and our country. His heart would be full tonight as a testament to the struggles of those who have gone before, as a legacy for those who will come after, as a tribute to the endurance, the patience, the courage of our forefathers and mothers, as an assurance that their prayers are being answered, that their work has not been in vain, and the hope is eternal. Tomorrow night, my name will go in nomination for the presidency of the United States of America. We meet tonight at the crossroads, a point of decision. Shall we expand, be inclusive, find unity and power, or suffer division and impotence? We come to Atlanta, the cradle of the Old South, the crucible of the New South. Tonight there is a sense of celebration because we are moved, fundamentally moved from racial battlegrounds by law to economic common ground. The moral challenge to move to higher ground, common ground. Think of Jerusalem, the intersection where many trails met, a small village that became the birthplace for three great religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Why was this village so blessed? Because it provided a crossroads where different people met, different cultures, different civilizations could meet and find common ground. When people come together, flowers always flourish. The air is rich with the aroma of a new spring. Take New York, the dynamic metropolis. What makes New York so special is the invitation at the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses who yearn to breathe free, not restricted to English only. Many people, many cultures, many languages, with one thing in common: they yearn to breathe free, common ground. Tonight in Atlanta, for the first time in this century, we convene in the South, a state where governors once stood in schoolhouse doors, where Julian Bond was denied his seat in the state legislature because of his conscientious objection to the Vietnam War, a city that through its 5 black universities has graduated more black students than any city in the world. Atlanta, now a modern intersection of the New South. Common ground. That's the challenge of our party tonight. Left wing, right wing. Progress will not come through boundless liberalism, nor static conservatism, but at the critical mass of mutual survival, not at boundless liberalism, nor static conservatism, but at the critical mass of mutual survival. It takes 2 wings to fly. Whether you're a hawk or a dove, you're just a bird living in the same environment, in the same world. The Bible teaches that when lions and lambs lie down together, none will be afraid, and there will be peace in the valley. It sounds impossible. Lions eat lambs. Lambs sensibly flee from lions. Yet even lions and lambs find common ground. Why? Because neither lion nor lambs want the forest to catch on fire. Neither lions nor lambs want acid rain to fall. Neither lions nor lambs can survive nuclear war. If lions and lambs can find common ground, surely we can as well as civilized people. The only time that we win is when we come together. In 1960, John Kennedy, the late John Kennedy, beat Richard Nixon by only 112,000 votes, less than 1 vote per precinct. We won by the margin of our hope. He brought us together. He reached out. He had the courage to defy his advisors and inquire about Dr. King's jailing in Albany, Georgia. We won by the margin of our hope, inspired by courageous leadership. In 1964, Lyndon Johnson brought both wings together, the thesis, the antithesis, and the creative synthesis, and together we won. In 1976, Jimmy Carter unified us again, and we won. When we do not come together, we never win. In 1968, division and despair in July led to our defeat in November. In 1980, Rickard in the spring and the summer led to Reagan in the fall. When we divide, we cannot win. We must find common ground as a basis for survival and development and change and growth. Today, when we debated, differed, deliberated, agreed to agree, agreed to disagree, when we had the good judgment to argue a case and then not self-destruct, George Bush was just a little further away from the White House and a little closer to private life. Tonight, I salute Governor Michael Dukakis. He has run a well-managed and a dignified campaign. No matter how tired or how tried, he always resisted the temptation to stoop to demagoguery. I've watched a good mind fast at work with steel nerves, guiding his campaign out of the crowded field without appeal to the worst in us. I've watched his perspective grow as his environment has expanded. I've seen his toughness and tenacity close up and know his commitment to public service. Mike Dukakis' parents were a doctor and a teacher. My parents, a maid, a beautician, and a janitor. There's a great gap between Brookline, Massachusetts, and Haney Street, the Fieldcrest Village Housing Projects in Greenville, South Carolina. He studied law. I studied theology. There are differences of religion, region, and race, differences in experiences and perspectives. But the genius of America is that out of the many, we become one. Providence has enabled our paths to intersect. His four parents came to America on immigrant ships. My four parents came to America on slave ships. But whatever the original ships, we're in the same boat tonight. Our ships could pass in the night if we had a false sense of independence, or they could collide and crash. We would lose our passengers. We can seek a higher reality and a greater good. Apart, we can drift on the broken pieces of Reaganomics, satisfy our baser instincts, and exploit the fears of our people. At our highest, we can call upon noble instincts and navigate this vessel to safety. The greater good is the common good. As Jesus said, "Not my will, but thine be done." It was his way of saying there's a higher good beyond personal comfort or position. The good of our nation is at stake. Its commitment to working men and women, to the poor and the vulnerable, to the many in the world. With so many guided missiles and so much misguided leadership, the stakes are exceedingly high. Our choice, full participation in a democratic government, or more abandonment and neglect. And so this night, we choose not a false sense of independence, not our capacity to survive and endure. Tonight we choose interdependency and our capacity to act and unite for the greater good. Common good is found in commitment to new priorities, to expansion and inclusion. A commitment to expanded participation in the Democratic Party at every level. A commitment to a shared national campaign strategy and involvement at every level. A commitment to new priorities that ensure that hope will be kept alive. A common ground commitment to a legislative agenda for empowerment, for the John Conyers bill, universal, on-site, same-day registration everywhere. A commitment to D.C. statehood and empowerment. D.C. deserves statehood. A commitment to economic set-asides. A commitment to the Dellums bill for comprehensive sanctions against South Africa. A shared commitment to a common direction. Common ground. Easier said than done. Where do you find common ground? At the point of challenge. This campaign has shown that politics need not be marketed by politicians, packaged by posters and pundits. Politics can be a moral arena where people come together to find common ground. We find common ground at the plant gate that closes on workers without notice. We find common ground at the farm auction where a good farmer loses his or her land to bad loans or diminishing markets. Common ground at the schoolyard where teachers cannot get adequate pay and students cannot get a scholarship and can't make a loan. Common ground at the hospital admitting room where somebody tonight is dying because they cannot afford to go upstairs to a bed that's empty, waiting for someone with insurance to get sick. We are a better nation than that. We must do better. Common ground. What is leadership if not present help in a time of crisis? And so I met you at the point of challenge in Maine, where paper workers were striking for fair wages. In Greenfield, Iowa, where family farmers struggle for a fair price. In Cleveland, Ohio, where working women seek comparable worth. In McFarland, California, where the children of Hispanic farm workers may be dying from poison land, dying in clusters with cancer. In the AIDS hospice in Houston, Texas, where the sick support one another, too often rejected by their own parents and friends. Common ground. America's not a blanket woven from one thread, one color, one cloth. When I was a child growing up in Greenville, South Carolina, and grandmama could not afford a blanket, she didn't complain and we did not freeze. Instead, she took pieces of old cloth, patches, wool, silk, gabardine, croquet sack, only patches, barely good enough to wipe off your shoes with. But they didn't stay that way very long. With sturdy hands and a strong cord, she sewed them together into a quilt, a thing of beauty and power and culture. Now, Democrats, we must build such a quilt. Farmers, you seek fair prices and you're right, but you cannot stand alone. Your patch is not big enough. Workers, you fight for fair wages, you're right, but your patch labor is not big enough. Women, you seek comparable worth and pay equity, you're right, but your patch is not big enough. Women, mothers who seek Head Start and daycare and prenatal care on the front side of life, rather than jail care and welfare on the backside of life. You're right, but your patch is not big enough. Students, you seek scholarships. You're right, but your patch is not big enough. Blacks and Hispanics, when we fight for civil rights, we are right, but our patch is not big enough. Gays and lesbians, when you fight against discrimination and a cure for AIDS, you are right, but your patch is not big enough. Conservatives and progressives, when you fight for what you believe, right wing, left wing, hawk, dove, you are right from your point of view, but your point of view is not enough. I just want to take common sense to high places. We're spending $150 billion a year defending Europe and Japan 43 years after the war is over. We have more troops in Europe tonight than we had 7 years ago. Yet the threat of war is ever more remote. Germany and Japan are now creditor nations. That means they got a surplus. We are a debtor nation, means we are in debt. Let them share more of the burden of their own defense. Use some of that money to build decent housing. Use some of that money to educate our children. Use some of that money for long-term health care. Use some of that money to wipe out these slums and put America back to work. I just want to take common sense to high places. If we can bail out Europe and Japan, if we can bail out Continental Bank and Chrysler and Mr. Iacocca make $8,000 an hour, we can bail out the family farmer. I just want to make common sense. It does not make sense to close down 650,000 family farms in this country while importing food from abroad subsidized by the U.S. government. Let's make sense. It does not make sense to be escorting oil tankers up and down the Persian Gulf, paying $2.50 for every $1 worth of oil we bring out, while oil wells are capped in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. I just want to make sense. Leadership must meet the moral challenge of its day. What's the moral challenge of our day? We have public accommodations. We have the right to vote. We have open housing. What's the fundamental challenge of our day? It is to end economic violence. Plant closing without notice, economic violence. Even the greedy do not profit long from greed, economic violence. Most poor people are not lazy. They're not black. They're not brown. They're mostly white and female and young. But whether white, black, or brown, a hungry baby barely turned inside out is the same color. Call it pain, call it hurt, call it agony. Most poor people are not on welfare. Some of them are illiterate and can't read the want ad sections. When they can't find a job that matches their dress. They work hard every day. I know. I live amongst them. I'm one of them. I know they work. I'm a witness. They catch the early bus. They work every day. They raise other people's children. They work every day. They clean the streets. They work every day. They drive dangerous cabs. They work every day. They change the beds you slept in these hotels last night and can't get a union contract. They work every day. No, they're not lazy. Someone must defend them because it's right, and they cannot speak for themselves. They work in hospitals. I know they do. They wipe the bodies of those who are sick with fever and pain. They empty their bedpans. They clean out their commode. No job is beneath them, and yet when they get sick, they cannot lie in the bed they made up every day. America, that is not right. We are a better nation than that. We are a better nation than that. We need a real war on drugs. You can't just say no. It's deeper than that. You can't just get a palm reader or an astrologer. It's more profound than that. We're spending $150 billion on drugs a year. We've gone from ignoring it to focusing on the children. Children cannot buy $150 billion worth of drugs a year. A few high-profile athletes are not laundering $150 billion a year. Bankers are. I met the children in Watts who unfortunately in their despair, their grapes of hope have become raisins of despair, and they're turning on each other and they're self-destructing. But I stayed with them all night long. I wanted to hear their case. They said, Jesse Jackson, as you challenge us to say no to drugs, you're right. And to not sell them, you're right. To not use these guns, you're right. By the way, the promise of SEPTA, they displaced CETA. They did not replace CETA. We have neither jobs, nor houses, nor services, nor training, nor way out. Some of us take drugs as anesthesia for our pain. Some take drugs as a way of pleasure, though it's short-term pleasure and long-term pain. Some sell drugs to make money. It's wrong, we know, but you need to know that we know. We can go and buy the drugs by the boxes at the port. If we can buy the drugs at the port, don't you believe the federal government can stop it if they want to? They say we don't have Saturday night specials anymore. They say we buy AK-47s and Uzas, the latest NATO weapons. We buy them across the counter on Long Beach Boulevard. You cannot fight a war on drugs unless and until you're going to challenge the bankers and the gun tellers and those who grow them. Don't just focus on the children. Let's stop drugs at the level of supply and demand. We must end the scourge on the American culture. Leadership. What difference will we make? Leadership cannot just go along to get along. We must do more than change presidents. We must change direction. Leadership must face the moral challenge of our day. The nuclear war build-up is irrational. Strong leadership cannot desire to look tough and let that stand in the way of the pursuit of peace. Leadership must reverse the arms race. At least we should pledge no fresh use. Why? Because fresh use begets fresh retaliation, and that's mutual annihilation. That's not a rational way out. No use at all. Let's think it out and not fight it out because it's an unwinnable fight. Why hold a card that you can never drop? Let's give peace a chance. Leadership. We now have this marvelous opportunity to have a breakthrough with the Soviets. Last year, 200,000 Americans visited the Soviet Union. There's a chance for joint ventures in the space, not Star Wars and the war arms escalation, but a space defense initiative. Let's build in the space together and demilitarize the heavens. There's a way out. America, let us expand. When Mr. Reagan and Mr. Gorbachev met, it was a big meeting. They represented together 1/8 of the human race. 7/8 of the human race was locked out of that room. Most people in the world tonight, half are Asian, 1/2 of them are Chinese. There are 22 nations in the Middle East. There's Europe, 400 million Latin Americans next door to us, the Caribbean, Africa, 500 million people. Most people in the world today are yellow, or brown, or black, non-Christian, poor, female, young, and don't speak English. In the real world, this generation must offer leadership to the real world. We're losing ground in Latin America, Middle East, South Africa because we're not focusing on the real world. That real world. We must use basic principles, support international law. We stand the most to gain from it. Support human rights. We believe in that. Support self-determination. We're built on that. Support economic development. You know it's right. Be consistent and gain our moral authority in the world. I challenge you tonight, my friends. Let's be bigger and better as a nation and as a party. We have basic challenges. Freedom in South Africa. We've already agreed as Democrats to declare South Africa to be a terrorist state. But don't just stop there. Get South Africa out of Angola. Free Namibia. Support the frontline states. We must have a new, humane, human rights consistent policy in Africa. I'm often asked, Jesse, why do you take on these tough issues? They're not very political. We can't win that way. If an issue is morally right, it will eventually be political. It may be political and never be right. Fannie Lou Hamer didn't have the most votes in Atlantic City, but her principles have outlasted every delegate who voted to lock her out. Rosa Parks did not have the most votes, but she was morally right. Dr. King didn't have the most votes about the Vietnam War, but he was morally right. If we're principled first, our politics will fall in place. Jesse, why do you take these big, bold initiatives? A poem by an unknown author went something like this: we've mastered the air, we've conquered the sea, annihilated distance and prolonged life, but we're not wise enough to live on this earth without war and without hate. As for Jesse Jackson, I'm tired of sailing my little boat far inside the harbor bar. I want to go out where the big ships float, out on the deep where the great ones are. And should my frail craft prove too slight, the waves that sweep those billows o'er. I'd rather go down in the stirring fight than drowse to death at the sheltered shore. We got to go out, my friends, where the big boats are. And then, for our children, young America, hold your head high now. We can win. We must not lose you to drugs and violence, premature pregnancy, suicide, cynicism, pessimism, and despair. We can win. Wherever you are tonight, I challenge you to hope and to dream. Don't submerge your dreams. Exercise above all else. Even on drugs, dream of the day you're drug-free. Even in the gutter, dream of the day that you'll be up on your feet again. You must never stop dreaming. Face reality, yes, but don't stop with the way things are. Dream of things as they ought to be. Dream. Face pain, but love, hope, faith, and dreams will help you rise above the pain. Use hope and imagination as weapons of survival and progress, but you keep on dreaming, young America. Dream of peace. Peace is rational and reasonable. War is irrational in this age and unwinnable. Dream of teachers who teach for life and not for living. Dream of doctors who are concerned more about public health than private wealth. Dream of lawyers more concerned about justice and the judgeship. Dream of preachers who are concerned more about prophecy than profiteering. Dream on the high road with sound values. And then America, as we go forth to September, October, November, and then beyond, America must never surrender to a high moral challenge. Do not surrender to drugs. The best drug policy is a no first use. Don't surrender with needles and cynicism. Let's have no first use on the one hand, or clinics on the other. Never surrender, young America. Go forward. America must never surrender to malnutrition. We can feed the hungry and clothe the naked. We must never surrender. We must go forward. We must never surrender to illiteracy. Invest in our children. Never surrender and go forward. We must never surrender to inequality. Women cannot compromise ERA or comparable worth. Women are making 60 cents on the dollar to what a man makes. Women cannot buy meat cheaper. Women cannot buy bread cheaper. Women cannot buy milk cheaper. Women deserve to get paid for the work that you do. It's right and it's fair. Don't surrender, my friends. Those who have AIDS tonight, you deserve our compassion. Even with AIDS, you must not surrender in your wheelchairs. I see you sitting here tonight in those wheelchairs. I've stayed with you. I've reached out to you across our nation, and don't you give up. I know it's tough sometimes. People look down on you. It took you a little more effort to get here tonight, and no one should look down on you, but sometimes mean people do. The only justification we have for looking down on someone is that we're going to stop and pick them up. But even in your wheelchairs, don't you give up. We cannot forget 50 years ago when our backs were against the wall, Roosevelt was in a wheelchair. I would rather have Roosevelt in a wheelchair than Reagan and Bush on a horse. Don't you surrender and don't you give up. Don't surrender. And don't give up. Why can I challenge you this way? Jesse Jackson, you don't understand my situation. You'll be on television. You don't understand. I see you with the big people. You don't understand my situation. I understand. You see me on TV, but you don't know the me that makes me me. They wonder why does Jesse run? Because they see me running for the White House. They don't see the house I'm running from. I have a story. I wasn't always on television. Writers were not always outside my door. When I was born late one afternoon, October 8th, in Greenville, South Carolina, no writers asked my mother her name. Nobody chose to write down our address. A mama was not supposed to make it, and I was not supposed to make it. You see, I was born to a teenage mother who was born to a teenage mother. I understand. I know abandonment and people being mean to you and saying you're nothing and nobody and can never be anything. I understand. Jesse Jackson is my third name. I'm adopted. When I had no name, my grandmother gave me her name. My name was Jesse Burns till I was 12. So I wouldn't have a blank space, she gave me a name to hold me over. I understand when nobody knows your name. I understand when you have no name. I understand. I wasn't born in the hospital. Mama didn't have insurance. I was born in the bed at house. I really do understand. Born in a 3-room house, bathroom in the backyard, slop job by the bed, no hot and cold running water. I understand. Wallpaper used for decoration? No, for a windbreaker. I understand. I'm a working person's person. That's why I understand you, whether you're black or white. I understand work. I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I had a shovel programmed for my hand. My mother, a working woman. Some of the days she went to work early, with runs in her stockings. She knew better, but she rolled runs in her stockings so that my brother and I could have matching socks and not be laughed at school. I understand. At 3 o'clock on Thanksgiving Day, we couldn't eat turkey because Mama was preparing somebody else's turkey at 3 o'clock. We had to play football to entertain ourselves. And then around 6 o'clock, she would get off the Alta Vista bus and we would bring up the leftovers and eat our turkey, leftovers, the caucus, the cranberries, around 8 o'clock at night. I really do understand. Every one of these funny labels they put on you, those of you who are watching this broadcast tonight in the projects, on the corners, I understand. Call you outcast, low down, you can't make it, you're nothing, you're from nobody, subclass, underclass. When you see Jesse Jackson, when my name goes in nomination, your name goes in nomination. I was born in the slum, but the slum was not born in me. And it wasn't born in you, and you can make it. Wherever you are tonight, you can make it. Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. It gets dark sometimes, but the morning comes. Don't you surrender. Suffering breeds character. Character breeds faith. In the end, faith will not disappoint. You must not surrender. You may or may not get there, but just know that you are qualified and you hold on and hold out. We must never surrender. America will get better and better. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive on tomorrow night and beyond. Keep hope alive. I love you very much.
A few months ago, when Olympia Dukakis, in front of about 1.5 billion television viewers all over the world, raised that Oscar over her head and said, "Okay, Michael, let's go," she wasn't kidding. Kitty and I are Kitty and I are grateful to her for that wonderful introduction and grateful to all of you for making this possible. This is a wonderful evening for us, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. My fellow Democrats, my fellow Americans, 16 months ago, when I announced my candidacy for the presidency of the United States, I said this campaign would be a marathon. Tonight, with the wind at our backs, with friends at our sides, and with courage in our hearts, the race to the finish line begins. We're going to win this race. We're going to win this race. We're going to win because we are the party that believes in the American dream. A dream so powerful that no distance of ground, no expanse of ocean, no barrier of language, no distinction of race or creed or color can weaken its hold on the human heart. And I know, because my friends, I'm a product of that dream, and I'm proud of it. A dream that brought my father to this country 76 years ago, that brought my mother and her family here 1 year later, poor, unable to speak English, but with a burning desire to succeed in their new land of opportunity. And tonight, in the presence of that marvelous woman who is my mother and who came here 75 years ago, with the memory in my heart of the young man who arrived at Ellis Island with only $25 in his pocket, but with a deep and abiding faith in the promise of America, and how I wish he was here tonight. He'd be very proud of his son. And he'd be very proud of his adopted country, I can assure you. Tonight, as a son of immigrants, with a wonderful wife, and now with Lisa, our lovely daughter-in-law, 4 terrific children, and as a proud public servant who has cherished every minute of the last 16 months on the campaign trail, I accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States. My friends, the dream that carried me to this platform is alive tonight in every part of our country, and it's what the Democratic Party is all about. Henry Cisneros of Texas, Bob Matsui of California, Barbara Mikulski of Maryland, Mario Cuomo of New York, Claude Pepper of Florida, and Jesse Lewis Jackson. A man who has lifted so many hearts with the dignity and the hope of his message throughout this campaign. A man whose very candidacy has said to every child, aim high. To every citizen, you count. To every voter, you can make a difference. To every American, you are a full shareholder in our dream. And my friends, if anyone tells you that the American dream belongs to the privileged few and not to all of us, you tell them that the Reagan era is over. You tell them that the Reagan era is over and that a new era is about to begin. Because it's time to raise our sights, to look beyond the cramped ideals and the limited ambitions of the past 8 years, to recapture the spirit of energy and of confidence and of idealism that John Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson inspired a generation ago. It's time to meet the challenge of the next American frontier, the challenge of building an economic future for our country that will create good jobs at good wages for every citizen in this land, no matter who they are or where they come from or what the color of their skin. It's time to rekindle the American spirit of invention and of daring, to exchange voodoo economics for can-do economics. to build the best America by bringing out the best in every American. It's time to wake up to the new challenges that face the American family. Time to see that young families in this country are never again forced to choose between the jobs they need and the children they love. Time to be sure that parents are never again told that no matter how long they work or how hard their child tries, a college education is a right they can't afford. It's time to ask why it is that we have run up more debt in this country in the last 8 years than we did in the previous 200, and to make sure it never happens again. It's time to understand that the greatest threat to our national security in this hemisphere is not the Sandinistas. It's the avalanche of drugs that is pouring into this country and poisoning our kids. I don't think I have to tell any of you how much we Americans expect of ourselves, or how much we have a right to expect from those we elect to public office. Because this election is not about ideology, it's about competence. It's not about overthrowing governments in Central America, it's about creating jobs in Middle America. That's what this election is all about. It's not about insider trading on Wall Street. It's about creating opportunity on Main Street. And it's not about meaningless labels. It's about American values, old-fashioned values like accountability and responsibility and respect for the truth. Just as we Democrats believe that there are no limits to what each citizen can do, so we believe that there are no limits to what America can do. And yes, I know this fall we're going to be hearing a lot of Republican talk about how well some neighborhoods and some regions of this country are doing, about how easy it is for some families to buy a home, or to find child care, or to pay their doctor's bills, or to send their children to college. But my friends, maintaining the status quo, running in place, standing still, isn't good enough for America. Opportunity for some isn't good enough for America. Because working together, we're going to forge a new era of greatness for America. We're going to take America's genius out of cold storage and challenge our youngsters. We're going to make our schools and our universities and our laboratories the finest in the world. And we're going to make teaching a valued and honored profession once again in this country. We're going to light fires of innovation and enterprise from coast to coast. And we're going to give those on welfare the chance to lift themselves out of poverty, to get the child care and the training they need, the chance to step out into the bright sunshine of opportunity and of hope and of dignity. We're going to invest in our urban neighborhoods, and we're going to work to revitalize small town and rural America. We're going to give our farm families a price they can live on. And farm communities a future they can count on. We're going to build the kind of America that Lloyd Benson has been fighting for the past 40 years. The kind of America where hard work is rewarded, where American goods and American workmanship are the best in the world. The kind of America that provides American workers and their families with at least 60 days' notice when a factory or a plant shuts down. Now, I know I have a reputation for being a somewhat frugal man. And let me state for the record that that snowblower is still in good working order, even as it sits in our garage. In 9 years, I've balanced 9 more budgets than this administration has, and I've just balanced a 10th. And I've worked with the citizens of my state, worked hard to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs, and I mean good jobs, jobs you can raise a family on, jobs you can build a future on, jobs you can count on. And I'm very proud of our progress. But I'm even prouder of the way we've made that progress. By working together, by excluding no one and including everyone, business and labor, educators and community leaders and just plain citizens, sharing responsibility, exchanging ideas, building confidence about the future. And my friends, what we have done reflects a simple but a very profound idea. An idea as powerful as any in human history. It is the idea of community. It is the idea of community. The kind of community that binds us here tonight. It is the idea that we are in this together. That regardless of who we are or where we come from or how much money we have, each of us counts. And that by working together to create opportunity and a good life for all. All of us are enriched, not just in economic terms, but as citizens and as human beings. An idea that was planted in the New World by the first governor of Massachusetts. We must, said John Winthrop, love one another with a pure heart, fervently. We must delight in each other, make each other's condition our own, rejoice together, mourn together, and suffer together. We must, he said, be knit together as one. Knit together as one. Now, John Winthrop wasn't talking about material success. He was talking about a country where each of us asks not only what's in it for some of us, but what's good and what's right for all of us. When a young mother named Dawn Lawson leaves 7 years of welfare to become a personnel specialist in a Fortune 500 company in Worcester, Massachusetts, we are all enriched and ennobled. When a Catholic priest named Bill Krause helps homeless families in Denver, not just by giving them shelter, but by helping them to find the jobs they need to get back on their feet, we are all enriched and ennobled. When a high school principal named George McKenna and a dedicated staff of teachers and counselors create an environment for learning at the George Washington Preparatory High School in Los Angeles, a high school in Los Angeles that is 90% black and 10% Hispanic and has 80% of its graduates accepted to college. We are all enriched and ennobled. When a dedicated new management team and a fine union in Milwaukee work together to turn Harley-Davidson around and help it come back to life and save 1,200 good jobs, we are all enriched and ennobled. And when a man named Willie Velasquez Y cuando un Willie Velázquez can register thousands of his fellow citizens as voters, puede inscribir decenas de miles de sus conciudadanos para votar, Dukakis can bring new energy and new ideas and new people, brindando así nuevas energías, nuevas ideas y nuevas personas into courthouses and city halls and state capitals of the Southwest, a los gobiernos municipales y estatales del suroeste. My friends, we are all enriched and ennobled. Mis amigos, todos nos enriquecemos y ennoblecemos. My friends, as president, I'm going to be setting goals for our country. Not goals for our government working alone. I mean goals for our people working together. I want businesses in this country to be wise enough and innovative enough to retrain their workers and retool their factories and to help rebuild their communities. I want students and office workers and retired teachers to share with a neighbor the precious gift of literacy. I want those of you who are bricklayers and carpenters and developers and housing advocates to work with us to help create decent and affordable housing for every family in America. So that we can once and for all end the shame of homelessness in the United States of America. I want our young scientists to dedicate their great gifts not to the destruction of life, but to its preservation. I want them to wage war on hunger and pollution and infant mortality. And I want them to work with us to win the war against AIDS, the greatest public health emergency of our lifetimes, and a disease that must be conquered. I want a new Attorney General. I want a new Attorney General to work with me and with law enforcement officers all over America to reclaim our streets and our neighborhoods from those who commit violent crime. And I want the members of the Congress to work with me, and I'm going to work with them, so that at long last we can make good on Harry Truman's commitment to basic health insurance for every family in America. My friends, the dream that began in Philadelphia 200 years ago the spirit that survived that terrible winter at Valley Forge and triumphed on the beaches at Normandy, The courage that looked Khrushchev in the eye during the Cuban Missile Crisis is as strong and as vibrant today as it has ever been. We must be, we are, and we will be militarily strong, but we must back that military strength with economic strength.